Good evening. The time is now 6:09, and I call this joint meeting with DeSoto City Council and the DeSoto ISD Board of Trustees to order. Our agenda item, we want to welcome everyone that is attending today. We thank you for being here. We look forward to a productive meeting and to ensure that the district and the city is moving in the right direction together. That is why we are here today, and so we will move forward with our agenda. We will begin with Mayor Pro Tem. He will bring our invocation. So at this time, would you please stand and remain standing for the pledge?
Shall we look to the Lord? God, our Father, we thank you now, God, for giving us one more day to come together, God, in your name. We thank you for the blessing of oneness, one DeSoto, God, one school district, one city officials. God, we thank you for binding us together, God, in common unity, and that is for the betterment of this community. We thank you in advance, God, for our spirit tonight, that everything that will be said and will be done will glorify you, God. You said in your word that it is one body with many members, so we thank you for the conjoining of membership today, God, to make one collective body. We pray for the leadership of the school board. We pray for President Fleming's, God, and the school board. We pray for Mayor Proctor and this council, God. We pray for every city leader, every city official, God, every city staff. We pray for every school board leader. We pray, God, for Dr. Weaver and his team. We ask now, God, that you would continue to bless our community and our society as we look forward to the future, God, and the great things you have in store for us. These and other blessings we pray in the one and only Jesus the Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
And now our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. You may be seated. I will establish the quorum for the DeSoto ISD Board of Trustees. We do have a quorum established with all seven trustees present. Dr. Clark is trustee vice president. Dr. Clark is attending by Zoom today. So we are established. I will now pass it to City Manager Brandon Wright.
Very good, and we'll do a roll call just to establish quorum. Mayor Rachel Proctor.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Andre Byrd.
Here.
Councilwoman Dinah Marks.
Here.
Councilwoman Kay Brown Patrick. Councilwoman Crystal Chisholm. Councilwoman Letitia Hughes. And Councilwoman Nicole Raphael. All right, thank you.
Agenda item 2 calls for public comments on agenda items. Do we have any at this time? We have no need for public comments. Next, agenda item 3. For 3A, we have our North Star progress updates and priorities. And that is going to be led by our presenter, Tanisha Boye Robinson, and she is attending by Zoom.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you, even though it's virtually. First, I want to make sure everyone can hear me. I see everyone from afar, but I'm assuming if no one says, I cannot hear your voice, you can. Yay, I see some waves. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and it's exceptionally exciting because this is not the first meeting where you guys have talked about working together. You've put in the really hard work over time to make sure that you all have an opportunity to make sure that every community member can have financial security and education. And so this is what we want to give an update about today. So just as a brief update and reminder, we are Cappy Q. I'm Ty Boye Robinson, or Tanisha Boye Robinson, and we are an impact investing and advisory firm that believes that doing well and doing good is a competitive advantage. And today I'm going to be joined with Marquez Frazier, who is on the line now. Marquez, you can turn your video on. Later on, he's going to be presenting a little bit more about what these working groups will look like in practice. But because you guys are really busy and you don't do this every day, we're going to give you a little bit of a reminder, a refresher how we got here. And we always always, especially with groups who don't work together every day, like to kind of share and make sure we're all on the same page for norms. So we want to make sure that everyone is here and engaged and present. We know everyone can't be in person. That doesn't mean we can't all be here in spirit with heads and hearts in service of the young people and the residents of DeSoto that we all care about, that we're comfortable with being transparent. We don't have to be nice to be kind. We don't always have to agree, as long as we're not disagreeable. That we make sure that if there are things that are confidential, that we make sure that we talk about those offline, since we know that this is a public forum, that we assume that everyone is here because they care about DeSoto and they care about the people and the residents there, and that we're here to model the collaborative leadership it would take for us to achieve that, because we're all going to work together with the spirit of learning. So I know you've heard this before, but unless anyone's completely saying that that is not what they're here to do today, I'm going to keep it moving. All right, so quick reminder of the overview. This is the phase 2 of the work. The first phase is really spearheaded by the visionary leadership of Dr. Weaver, with input from trustees, parents, alumni, students, and teachers. And now this is about us really making sure that the things that DeSoto ISD can't do by themselves, we know that if you go alone, you can go fast, but if you go with others, you can go longer. So that is what this is about. So this is the process, and we're making sure that we are working together to launch the working groups and have the infrastructure to make sure this is successful. So just as a reminder, what is the North Star Collaborative? The North Star Collaborative is really a cross-sector group of leaders who have been part of this partnership from day one to make sure that we can see that all people live in safe, multicultural communities, have the highest quality education, and are financially strong and empowered. They are not the only group of leaders around the table. In fact, the working groups are really to make sure that the people who experience this every day are the ones who are driving and leading and providing the input to this work. But they also make sure that there's accountability, there's a feedback loop, and there's enough input on both sides to make sure that we don't lose momentum. Now, we talked in the past about, well, what would it look like to achieve that North Star? It's everything from learning being an anchor of our community with engaged government, institution, and business partners. And this meeting is an example of what it looks like when you prioritize learning, especially under the leadership of Brandon Wright and others within the city of DeSoto, that everyone in our community has the financial means to support themselves and their families. We know from former conversations that the city of DeSoto has prioritized so many different economic and other types of interventions to make sure that's true, that our community is committed to being the healthiest and happiest community in America. Similarly, with the city of DeSoto and the DeSoto ISD strategic plans, that is front and foremost in that work, and the community values and fosters an appreciation of cultural differences. So we took what that success looked like, we prioritized those root causes to get to a point where we came up with a set of collaborative strategies. Once again, never in a vacuum, never in a silo, always over a 6+ month period with hundreds and hundreds of hours input from the community members who are experiencing this day to day. And so that's where these prioritized strategies came up: establishing community-wide lifelong learning plan, developing community-informed career pathways, making sure that there are civic leadership pipelines to make sure that the people who come after you are equipped to actually drive forward the vision, just like you guys are doing today, making sure that there's a shared identity, that diversity is not looked at as something that is a bad thing, but as something that is an asset that makes your community something that people want to go to and be a part of, and that there's an alignment on shared regional health goals. So you guys have all seen this before, but I just wanted to make sure everyone's fine. So does everyone remember that? We're all good? Yes, I'm seeing head nods. So I'm going to keep it moving. So that was what we talked about from a philosophical standpoint last time. Now you guys have made so much more progress. So we've said before, and I know President Fleming loves this kind of set of interventions that has to do with outcomes, that it's really not just about talking, it's about making sure that you have outcomes that drive those actions. So our work moving forward is really about establishing what those strategies are and making sure you have the set of short-term, medium-term, and long-term outcomes that show that your strategies are those strategies that we identified with the input of the community are actually getting the outcomes that you want. And it's about, are you doing the right things and are you doing them right? And so based on the input of the community, the North Star Collaborative actually came up with a set of outcomes. You don't have all of them yet because that's actually not the job of the collaborative, the steering committee. That is the job of the working groups. Once again, making sure that the people who are experiencing this are the ones who have the most direct input day to day on what you guys choose. But there is a set of 6 to 10 year outcomes that align with these strategies that we've talked about now, which is about increasing wealth, decreasing health disparities, increasing increasing income, increasing post-secondary credentials, and ensuring that there's an increase of diverse residents in the region. And so those are the handful of outcomes that no matter what strategy you're doing, whether it's about lifelong learning or civic leadership, they're all laddering up together in kind of a lattice frame to make sure that we are contributing to one or more of these long-term outcomes. And the work of the working groups is to come up with what are the short and medium-term strategies and outcomes that allow us to know if we're on our way to, are we doing the right things and are we doing them right? So all of that is great progress from the last time we met. And so we're now getting into the nitty-gritty on, so how does this work happen day to day? And so what it looks like is the steering committee who's kind of shepherded this work with Brandon Wright and Dr. Weaver and others is now working together with a group of working group members and co-chairs. And they are taking the input and actually elbow grease of community members to make sure that they're shaping the agenda, but also helping activate it. So that's what the work looks like in progress. We often compare it to a wedding chart. So if you think about each of the tables, everybody is working together in different ways. Everybody might not be at the table at the same time, but as long as everyone's on the dance floor together, knowing that they're working in the same direction on this electric slide, then we can make sure we're getting these outcomes on behalf of the people and families that we care about. So with that said, each one of these working group or each one of these collaborative strategy areas now have identified working group chairs. And so this once again was with the input of steering committee members and others based on a history and a track record of being able to move the needle on specific things that would help support this work. So you'll see the list here. Some of these folks are confirmed. In fact, most of them are. And shout out once again to Brandon Wright from City of DeSoto, who has courageously and graciously offered to be one of those co-chairs. Marlon Goff, who is one of his peers at City of Glen Heights, is there arm in arm with him. So we are really grateful for the City of DeSoto, not just for Brandon Wright, but also if you notice, there are several other co-chairs, whether it's DeSoto Development Corporation or DeSoto Parks. We're going to have a real key leadership role in helping to make sure that there's momentum. So really great work there. And those co-chairs are going to help not be kind of the dictator or the director of day-to-day, but help facilitate to make sure that there's a space for everybody who cares about these outcomes to really contribute. So that is the overall structure of how we're doing the work. And now I'm going to pass it over to Marquez Frazier, my colleague. He's going to give you a little bit more detail on what that work looks like day to day and how the co-chairs, what the co-chairs roles are. So Marquez, it's up to you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that, Ty. Good evening, everyone. And so as Ty alluded to, the working groups are essentially designed to really operationalize the day-to-day work of the community to move these objectives forward. And so as you all know, the CAPIQ model relies on collective impact as a framework to build upon. And so as one of the first pillars in collective impact, we think about sort of contributing to the development of an agenda, a shared agenda. And the co-chairs really work in that role to help to facilitate those conversations in order for us to develop both a content and direction for the meetings that we hold. From there, again, just piggybacking off of some things that Ty mentioned, the co-chairs are really sort of designed to help facilitate discussions. They aren't necessarily the only decision makers, but they're positioned to help really lead conversations during the working groups meetings in order to solicit ideas, get feedback, etc., in order for us to come up with a set of shared decisions in order to move the work forward for the respective strategies. From there, these next two ideas kind of work together. It's essentially about how do we manage internally and thinking about bringing those diverse perspectives, diverse interests, diverse needs under one umbrella and channeling those ideas and harnessing them to be able to work towards a shared outcome. And so, as a part of a co-chair lead, you will be sort of responsible for addressing any concerns that may come up and managing those concerns both internally and outside of meetings. To include sort of understanding sort of how you working group members are uniquely positioned and are unique assets in order to drive the work forward. And lastly, it's really serving as an ambassador, both internally as well as externally, really being a face of the work that we're doing as a part of the North Star Community Collaborative, and really being responsible for really championing the work beyond just our working group meetings, but even in community forums such as this. Next slide, please. And so once we think about sort of the criteria and the profile of a working group co-chair, there's four things that really stands out. And so it's an opportunity to engage, but that engagement requires some level of commitment. And so we like to sort of just give a sort of an approximation of the time, which is about 3 to 4 months per, 3 to 4 hours per month, which may vary. As you know, sometimes it takes at the start of anything, it may take a little more elbow grease to get things rolling. And then from there, it can be managed a little differently. And so we just sort of keep in mind that it's a sliding scale in terms of the amount of engagement, but just on average, it's 3 to 4 hours. From there, we want to think about sort of the role of the co-chair. And I can't emphasize this enough. The co-chairs really serve as a catalyst for change, not necessarily making all of the decisions or getting things done, but they facilitate conversations, they coordinate people and resources in order to get things done in the name of the strategy that we want to move forward. From there, we want to also consider the next sort of step of a co-chair, and just thinking about being a part of the working groups, which is really managing the day-to-day. And so us being responsible for things that need to get done and move forward in order to really reach that North Star that Ty alluded to. Is really managing the day-to-day work, and so making sure that we're ready for those things. And so, and everything that comes along with it. Scheduling meetings, making sure that the notes get taken, and logistics coordinated, et cetera, et cetera. And this is not about symbolic leadership, which I love that language. This is really about really being committed to the work and really driving the initiative for understanding that co-chairs and the leadership of the co-chairs really help to catalyze and move the work that we're focused on forward. Next slide, please. All right, and so specifically as it relates to getting co-chairs up to speed and oriented to the work, there's a few things that we want to keep in mind. And so one of the things that we're positioning for is to schedule a working group orientation, which essentially allows the working group members to get to know each other and get ready to work together, develop a shared understanding of the work and our approach as it relates to moving things forward, and have a space to ask questions. We understand that this is maybe new work to some and more familiar to others, but we just want to get on the same page around how it all works together. And so just to go through these last sort of pieces a bit more quickly, one of the things that we're going to focus on is project readiness. And so it's going to be an opportunity to ground everyone in our methodology, understand how collective impact plays a role, and also be in a position to recruit others to join the working group. Again, this is about diverse stakeholders, diverse participants, et cetera, et cetera. And from there, we're going to be working in very specific deliverables in order to develop and revise those short-term strategies, develop performance measures, which helps us manage and focus on continuous improvement, create action steps and action plans in order to implement those strategies, and develop from a long-term perspective a what we call a performance management routine for data collection, and then using data to drive decisions going forward. And lastly, one of the things that we want to focus on as we work with the working group co-chairs is getting in a rhythm around meeting frequency and meeting platform. Is that Zoom? Is that another technology, et cetera? But in a nutshell, these are the things that we really point to as it relates to our working group co-chairs and getting those stood up in order to move the work forward. So Ty, I just want to turn it back over to you.
Thanks. So I know we threw a lot out there, and some of this is familiar, but some of this was a little bit more tactical. So I want to open it up to see if there's any Q&A, and also invite Brandon and Dr. Weaver to jump in if there's any clarifying words that you'd like to add.
At this time, are there any questions? And I do want to say, Dr. Weaver is absent here with us, but he is attending by Zoom. So he is attending by Zoom. At this time, are there any questions for the board or city council?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Trustee Cooper.
Can you explain to us, I know you've given the presentation, but can you explain to us the end goal for what we're doing here so that we can clearly see in a statement or a term or word, whatever you want to use, give us the end goal of this effort?
Absolutely. So I think from a DeSoto ISD standpoint, and then I will ask Dr. Weaver to chime in to make sure that I am not misrepresenting. Everything rolls up to your goals as trustee members. You've made very explicit goals of what's going to help move the needle. And if you look at the strategic plan that we also helped work on, there are aspects of that strategic plan that, but for working with others, you can't achieve. So if you think about, and I think some of you have heard me give some of these examples before, but if you think about centering the child and what it is that they need to be successful, if you have a goal like making sure that everybody is kindergarten ready, making sure that you're hitting your third grade readings goals, making sure that everybody is proficient, what are the barriers? And you work backwards from those barriers to understand the root cause. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the child. Sometimes it has to do with not having an environment where people have a healthy background, parents not having a stable working environment. And so that is unfair to burden the district, the parents, the teachers. And so that's why having partners like the city of DeSoto who can lift some of that, which addresses the root causes of why you may not be able to meet those trustee goals, but being very focused on you as a trustee body has been very clear about what you expect for this district to thrive and what you expect for Dr. Weaver to lead it. And so this is all about making sure you're enhancing the goals that you've defined and not creating a whole other set of them. I hope that answers your question, Trustee Cooper.
Are there any questions? I'll turn it over to City Manager Brandon Wright and Dr. Weaver. Dr. Weaver, did you have any clarifying statements?
Thank you, President Fleming, and hello, everyone. I really wish I was there today. You all have no idea. I think Ty perfectly nailed that response. The only thing that I would add is that not only do we have goals locally that we want to achieve, there are also shared goals across our community that we all can work together towards. And so I think this effort, bringing these institutions together on the regular basis that we meet to achieve these large goals is actually going to be beneficial for all of us. So I'll add that. Brandon, do you have anything else you want to add?
Hello? Okay, there we go. Dr. Weaver, thank you. And I do, and I think it actually stems into the next portion of our agenda. So if we're ready to continue moving on, I know my comments will kind of dovetail into the presentation that we have here next. With that, so if everyone's okay, we'll go ahead and move on. All right. Let me bring this up real fast. All right, so the exciting part about this work, as we've been working on the North Star Initiative for so long, is that there is a lot of great work ahead of us as we cooperate with the community, with the ISD, the school, the ISD, the city, UNT Dallas, the Methodist Health System. We have so many great partners working with us that we wanted to, as we met here with the school board and the city, we wanted to take the opportunity to recognize that we don't need to wait within our own organizations to make good things start to happen. Both of us have very good strategic plans and goals that we are already working toward. And you'll remember at the last meeting that we had that we went over those priorities and those different strategic plan goals that we each have and things that would get better if we partnered together on a more regular basis in accomplishing. So the good news is that because our organizations have already started that strategic planning process independently, there's an opportunity for us to combine our efforts right now and really start working forward on these North Star goals, even though we are still trying to get together that entire North Star collaborative group, right, and get them all on board and everyone moving together in one direction. We know that there are things that we can do today to continue moving forward. So the 5 North Star strategies that were on there, so establishing a community-wide lifelong learning plan, that was one of them. There are 5. The second one was developing community-informed career pathways. The third one is building intentional civic leader pipelines. Fourth is fostering shared regional identity, a shared regional identity anchored in culture and diversity. And the 5th one is aligning on shared regional health goals. Those were the 5 main strategic priorities within the North Star Initiative. Okay? You'll remember that, again, at our last meeting, we went through all of the different strategic goals that our organizations have independently and said these fit underneath the 5 North Star strategic areas. And then a few weeks ago, we sent out a survey to the trustees and to the city council members and asked you to prioritize those, because we can't do everything at one time, right? There was a long list. Each item had at least a dozen goals on there. If we were to focus on a dozen goals at times 5, that just becomes unmanageable as organizations. But we asked everyone to prioritize your top 2 goals in each of the North Star strategic priority areas. And I have here the results of that survey so that we can talk about this. The goal at the end of our meeting today, or one of the goals, is that we would have established working groups among the trustees and the city council, supported by staff from both organizations, to begin working on these goals together so that we can really begin moving them forward in serious and productive ways. Okay, so that is what we were trying to do here today. So our goal, as I go through each of these, the 5 areas, is to make sure that we have alignment on both the trustees and the city council side before we move forward, that these are the 2 priority areas that we want to move forward with. Okay? If it's not and you have a different idea, this is the place for the debate and for the discussion about which items should be prioritized over others. If it looks like it's, that's pretty good and everyone's fine with it, then the walk away is going to be those members who are assigned to those different working groups will begin focusing on these goals and begin moving them forward. Now, I'll just caveat that with everything is always subject to our own budgets, right? And what it is. So there's no, each working group doesn't have the ability to command each other, right, to do things. The whole goal is that we work collaboratively together in identifying the resources and the time and the energy that it's going to take to seriously accomplish these goals. So if we take a look at the first item, which is establishing community-wide lifelong learning plans, and when we asked the trustees and the city council members, which 2 do you want to choose? The 2 that received the most responses, one of them received 6 and one of them received 4. All right, the first one was collaborating to create strategies to increase the district's academic performance and image to attract economic development and residents. Okay, so that would be one area that this group would focus on, and they would begin to create initiatives within each of these goals. Okay, the second one was strengthening relationships and partnerships with private and public schools, higher education institutions, businesses, and community organizations in the Best Southwest region to promote learning and enrichment opportunities. That would be the second one. Okay. So I'm going to pause here for a minute and make sure that we have alignment between the trustees and the city council before we move forward to the next item. So any thoughts, any comments on having these 2 goals be the focus of the community-wide lifelong learning plan group?
Trustee Cooper.
To strengthen relationships and partnerships with private and public schools. I'm struggling there. Because it saddens me that we have so many citizens that choose private schools and charter schools above DeSoto ISD. And so how does this fit into our partnership when you add that statement, right? When that part is added? Can you address that for me?
I sure can, yeah. So if, I'm just going to give you an example, and I don't know exactly how the working group would decide that they would want to move forward with this initiative, but an example of this certainly could be that once the working group of the trustees and the city council members are established and they have this goal, that they might want to include members of private schools in some of the discussions about how it is that we all work together, maybe on a little bit better and more consistent basis. So that might be one way that they do it, and then they might be able to from there identify areas where they can work together in order to again build the goal here as a community, right? Is that we create the idea that the DeSoto community, the Glen Heights community, is a place where kids can thrive, get great educations and things like that. And so from that holistic approach, how it is that we might be able to work together towards that end. Again, that's just an idea, but the working group really would be the ones who would kind of get together and start discussing how it is that they would want to incorporate some of those ideas in. All right, any other questions? Oh, please.
Just, and I don't want to overtake the meeting if someone else has, but these are just things that just concern me. I'm still not, that response was okay, but I still want to see how this would benefit DeSoto ISD to include private schools in that type of conversation. And so, you know, the response you gave was fine, but I still struggle with that, where we are right now. Just, you know, honestly, every student that chooses, or family that chooses to not use DeSoto ISD, that means our numbers are going down. And so that's where I stand on that. When you want to include, I don't want to use the word competition, but you know, if we look at this as a business, they are the competition, private schools and charter schools.
My question is, as we start, I mean, we've done the you all have done the research on the North Star program that we're starting. I can't see how the private sector or the the partnership or private school can relate if this is set up to according to what we as trustees have set up of our goals and what we want to see our students accomplish, and for Dr. Weaver to put out there the efforts to make sure that they get there. How is this going to our goals has nothing to do with a partnership with private schools or charter schools. It's what we want for our children in our district.
Can you hear me now? There you go. I'm going to switch mics. Mine's a little bit spotty over here. And certainly I don't want to break into this meeting on that particular topic in detail, right? But I think your comments are well received. I think the working group needs to consider that as they begin working together. I think again, knowing that the focus of this working group is not necessarily always to match alignment perfectly with the larger North Star organization, right? But it is to be able to figure out how it is that we move in that direction. So even in developing the stronger relationships between the school district and these other entities, the institutions of higher education, all of those will be good ends towards moving forward. So I don't want to get into the exact how it's going to happen right now on that part, but I think any movement in the right direction that builds relationships among many of the people listed or many of the organizations listed on this list, I think will move us in the right direction. So if it's okay, maybe tabling that conversation to the working group and saying, in the working group, figure out how it is that we do parts of that, but deciding whether or not all of that should be included. So.
And if it's okay,
Yeah,
if I can jump in here, as we think about this North Star, this larger North Star is about every single person essentially in our community. And knowing that we, ultimately want to affect in a positive way every single student and family in our community, we also realize that there are some families that choose other options. We believe that through this partnership work and the investments that will be made specifically in the school system, that parents will choose DeSoto ISD, period. We are really excited about the conversations we've had about the future. We know what parents want. We're working towards that. And so we're not necessarily concerned at this moment about parents choosing other places as a result of this work. We actually think that parents and students will choose to come to DeSoto ISD because of the work of this partnership. For instance, one of our strategies in our strategic plan is to ensure that every student has an internship, externship, or apprenticeship. The only way we can accomplish that is through partnerships with our local institutions and business community. There's no one else guaranteeing or wanting to guarantee every student has an internship, externship, apprenticeship. And so we believe that that is something that parents and students will want to be a part of, thus bringing students back into our system. So, while I also share, those concerns, I do want to encourage our trustees, even our city council, to know that we are doing what we can to incentivize our families to return back to DeSoto ISD.
Mayor Pro Tem Byrd, did you have a question? Oh, Mayor, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro.
Yes, thank you, President Fleming. I did have a question. As we go through each strategy, can you identify which one came from this, of these two, which one came from each set? So of these two, is there one that came from the school board and one came from, that was submitted from the council?
Let's see, I believe both of those have come from the city's list, actually, the city strategic plan. Both
Okay,
of those
so
items.
both of these.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee.
And if I might just interject very briefly so that we can move on past this, to somewhat of what Dr. Weaver was referring to, and then even just with your point, Tim, in terms of where exactly did those points come from. As a city, we have to look at it holistically and community-wide. I think when we consider public and private schools, and so I think some of it, as they said, it's for us, it's not looking at competition versus one or the other. Just to state that we have to look at it community-wide in terms of what opportunities are we bringing for every student, every young person that is here in our city, and that like they said, when we get into the working groups, I'm assuming that it could look a lot of different ways, and it doesn't necessarily have to look like a setup to where one is against the other, but how can we find some ways as a working group that they can still work in tandem, ultimately with the benefit of benefiting our young people and benefiting every student here in the city of DeSoto. So those are my thoughts in terms of the question that came up about why would we do this in terms of public and private school. And while I can definitely understand that concern and understand how that may pose concern, I think from a city standpoint, it's incumbent upon us to consider all the students, whether they're in the district or not, in terms of how we provide those promote these goals that we've set.
Councilwoman Marks.
Okay, thank you, President Fleming. I wanted to go back for just a few minutes to Secretary Cooper's question initially. He asked, what is the overall outcome of that? The overall outcome on the school side, I would think, would be academic achievement. Because when we look at statistics, it says when parents, teachers, community, everybody working together, children tend to do better. When we have a good school system, we have an excellent city. That's the overall goal. That's what brings us here today, is a great city, great schools, everyone working together. It's called One DeSoto. Be it private schools, be it public schools, they're all under the same umbrella, One DeSoto. I yield back.
Thank you. I do see that there is concern still from my colleagues in the trustee side. So can we ask that this number 2, because you did state that there are 2 points that were higher prioritized, but they did come from the city's strategic plan. So is there any way that we can reevaluate one of those points to come from the school district? And since that's the one that's been belabored, maybe reevaluate that point.
I,
Go.
I was going to say, I was going to say, I'm sure when we look at the objectives that come under that particular heading, we can somewhat address those kinds of issues that they're speaking of to lead it in the direction that we'd like to see it go. I yield back.
Yeah, I would imagine that within the working groups, you're going to have enough flexibility to be able to tailor it to fit the needs of those members who are called to chair those groups. So I think with the flexibility of working in that group, I think we will be able to achieve a balance between what it is the school district's concerns are and where the city council has some concerns as well in that area. So.
Where does Glen Heights fit into this? The students of Glen Heights, the students who, the students who live in Glen Heights are part of our school district. Is Glen Heights not in here anywhere? I mean, I don't see their city council here, and I understand one DeSoto, but Glen Heights is part of DeSoto Independent School District.
Yeah, so,
and I can,
yep, absolutely. Yeah, in the North Star Initiative we talked about before, the North Star Initiative is larger than just our two organizations, right? There are more that are working on those. There are efforts to be had with all of those organizations working together within the formal working groups of the North Star. These are working groups within the City Council and the DeSoto ISD working together as probably two of the anchors of the North Star Initiative, right? And because we already have strategic plans, it's moving forward plans that we already have to work on collaboratively together to make our two organizations move faster together. With that. So it's not to say that Glen Heights won't be included in the larger working group that happens at the North Star Collaborative. This is really specifically for our two organizations because of the fact that we have strategic plans that are ready to go, and we've already told our residents what it is we're expecting to do. It's just about doing the things that we've already communicated to them, doing them better.
I would agree with the city manager. Glen Heights is just in a different place with their strategic planning processes. They're just kicking that off, whereas the city and the independent school district has already started and completed those processes. So yes, there are some joint collaborative work that happens at the North Star level. But for our purposes, because we have 4 meetings a year and we're further along in our processes, we found some opportunities to work together right now on behalf of our residents.
So just for clarity, basically you're saying when the trustees and city council members get in their work groups, they can specify what part of this bullet that they want to actualize.
So once Glen Heights identifies their strategic priorities, there'll be some overlap between what the North Star priorities are, just like the city of DeSoto and the independent school district. We're able to find some common layers underneath the North Star priorities. Glen Heights would do the same thing. And then there may be some DeSoto ISD and Glen Heights specific collaborations, as well as there are some joint collaborations amongst all the institutions together. Does that answer the question, President Fleming?
No. Yes, no, you clarified that, and we look forward to once Glen Heights actualizes their strategic plan to have that partnership and this discussion with them as well. But I was actually I was moving us back to point of order in ensuring that before we move on from this bullet item, that the work groups can actually specify what parts of the bullet that they would actually work on, they would actualize.
So absolutely, that is the function of the working groups. It is to take these, because even right now, these bullets are fairly large concepts, and really refining them down into things that can be done in order to move that initiative forward. So they'll have the opportunity to tailor it to whatever they think is most important to move that work forward. Okay, then we'll move on to item 2. Yep. All right, the second item is developing a community-informed career pathway. Now on this one, it just so happens that there were 4 items that all scored the same number of points with 4 votes on each of them. So there weren't 2 items that kind of went to the top, it was all 4. I've included all four really for the purposes of discussion to see where it is that the priorities fall when it comes to these four, looking at them and kind of re-evaluating them. So you have creating an entrepreneurial friendly environment to optimize the success of small, minority-owned, women-owned, and historically underutilized businesses. Prioritize student engagement through signature experiences and real-world complex performance and project-based tasks. Strengthen college preparatory planning and advising district-wide and expand access and success in rigorous college preparatory experiences, courses, and/or programs for all students. And cultivate livable wage career pathways by ensuring workforce-aligned programming, including a real-world internship or apprenticeship for every student. Going back to the Mayor Pro Tem's question earlier, I'll just note the first bullet was a city goal. The second, third, and fourth items are all school district goals. So I'll open up to some discussion about the prioritization of these four items and which two kind of grow to the top.
Councilwoman Marks.
Oh, okay. I was looking around to see if somebody else wanted to say something before I jumped in. Since the city only has one on here, let that one be one of the goals. And then, of course, since the school district had three, we can ask them to choose one out of the three, and we can address it. And that way it's an even playing field. I yield back.
Thank you. So the current suggestion is to retain the first bullet and choose between the last three. And if that's the case, would anyone like to propose one of those?
I would suggest the third one would be one that we really place forward. Strengthen college preparatory planning and advising district-wide and expand access and success in rigorous college preparatory experiences, courses, and/or programs for all students. I think that would drive us to a place where we can not only be more attractive as a district, but really challenge our students and really prepare them for the future. So I would suggest that we focus in on the third bullet as far as from the district side of this bullet.
Thank you. Dr. Clark?
I was going to suggest the last one that says cultivate livable wages for career paths through internships for every student. But I will definitely support Trustee Cooper in strengthening college preparatory planning.
Thank you, Vice President Clark. So with that, we have two on the floor, and it will be a decision from us mutually. So looking at the space, are there anyone that wants to nominate the second one? Okay, so we're down to the last two. Then can we take a vote on that? Here. So,
Yeah, we'll probably just ask for general consensus instead of votes, right? I think if there were lawyers here, they'd probably say that.
okay. Can we take general consensus on which one we will suggest? So I'll go by general consensus bullet point. The third bullet point, strengthen college preparatory planning.
Maybe let's start, if we could just go around the room and everyone can express which ones they would prefer between those two, that might be helpful. Maybe Councilwoman Hughes, if you want to start over there.
No, you can move it back. Say it again. College prep.
Yeah, college prep on that one. And just to clarify, just to make sure everyone understands so going through and just expressing, would you prefer the second, I'm sorry, the third item or the third or the fourth item, right? Third from the top. They're very good. Yes, third, strengthening college preparatory planning or creating career pathways with by ensuring workforce-aligned programming, including a real-world internship or apprenticeship for every student. Okay, Councilwoman Chisholm.
Bullet 4, the cultivate.
Okay, And because I said all that, Councilwoman Hughes, I forgot which one was yours. I'm sorry. Which one did you say? She was 3. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank
Okay, to be perfectly honest, if I had to choose, it would be number 4. And the reason I say that is because it's real world internships and apprenticeship for every single student. I think that would give them real life experiences, and I think that's one of the things that we lack with our students. So if I had to choose, that's the one it would be. Thank you.
I agree that all 3 that the school district submitted are very important, and getting to college is very, very important. But I think that item 4 is more applicable to more students.
Thank you. I'm with item number 4, cultivating the livable wage career pathways.
Trustee McNary, we'll start with you.
I like item number 4 as well. I feel like if we select 3, we're leaving out students that take a different career path that don't go to college. So I select bullet number 4.
Trustee Daniel.
I think bullet number 1 and bullet number 4 go together and they could be one thing. And I think bullet number 2 and bullet number 3 go together and they could be one thing. And that way you'd have all of this covered and you'd have 2 bullets, one from the city and one from the school district.
And this is why we love you. So we're assuming that you're going to choose.
I would put 1 and 4 together for the city and 2 and 3 together for the school district.
Noted. 4. Trustee Gold.
I like Ms. Daniels' reasoning, yes, because all of this is important. But I do believe that bullet number 4, where livable wage career pathways is very important for our students to see. So I'm going to vote for number 4.
Thank you, Trustee Banks.
Bullet 4.
Thank you. And it is bullet 4 for myself. City Manager Wright.
Very good. I think we have the information we need there. So thank you very much, trustees and council members. Number 3 is build intentional civic.
Hello. Can y'all hear me? No, I can't hear anything. I can't hear you guys, but 4. If you can hear me, it's number 4.
All right, the 2 items that scored the highest for build intentional civic leader pipelines. First of all, enhancing communication with the public through accuracy, consistency, and frequency. That was a city goal. Develop a community engagement strategy that promotes citizen involvement in the local government and community. And I believe that one is a city goal. On that, that one could have been a school goal. I think it was a city one though.
Yeah, both of those are city.
I think it was a city goal.
Yeah, both of those are city goals.
Sure. I think the intent of that goal is that you look at the overall communication platform that the organization uses and saying, okay, how is it that we can improve what we're doing right now from a communication standpoint by looking at how we're doing things like accurately talking about what's going on, consistency in the way that we're performing that, right? Frequency and the amount of content that's going out and pushing to the public. How is it that we evaluate our overall communication platform and enhance it and improve it? Yeah, so that's the exciting part about, when we created this goal on the city side, it was just thinking about the city's communication platform, right? But as you pull it into the North Star Collaborative, right, intentionally building civic leader pipelines, how do we enhance communication with the public from both the school district and the city council to build those civic leader pipelines, right? How are we messaging those things together so that it's more powerful, it breaks through, right, and is able to reach people and generate interest in running for boards, commissions, positions on seats, and things like that.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no other questions or comments on that one, we will move to item number 4, fostering shared regional.
Brandon,
Oh,
I'm
please,
sorry.
yes.
I have I just, on bullet point number 2, can we change local government? I'm not, in community, can we say local government and the ISD? Can we be more pointed to reflect that it is a shared identity?
We sure can, yeah. So when this is all done, what we'll probably do is rewrite them all so that it's clear that it's a joint effort between both entities. That's an excellent point. Thank you. All right, third time's a charm. We're going to move on to number 4. All right, fostering a shared regional identity anchored in culture and diversity, the 2 items that scored the highest. First of all, expanding cultural arts, events, and amenities for all generations and people with different abilities, that received 6 votes, and support parks and recreation programs, services, and facilities for all generations and people with different abilities. Those were the 2 highest scoring items at 6 and 5. Both of those are city goals. The way that I would see that working is when you get into the working groups, it would not be, going back to kind of what Mayor Pro Tem was just talking about, this wouldn't be worded this way exactly. We would probably try and figure out, it might be that the first thing the working groups do is actually work together to phrase these goals the way that's going to be common language for both organizations. Okay, on that. And then from there, then I think we have a better idea moving forward of how it is that we collaborate. Because I'll almost guarantee you, I don't know the school district strategic plan perfectly from start to finish, but I'm going to bet you that there's something in there that talks about, take the first item, right, about the arts and events and things and reaching out to kids with different disabilities and things like that. I'm going to guarantee you there's something in there for that. How it is that we work together to make those things happen better, I'm confident that we will find ways to do that. Were there any other questions before we move on? Was there?
Looking at 5, and the bullet point is the same on 4 and 5, the second bullet point. Is that intentional?
Yeah, on the city side, just kind of looking at the way that we approached it, there was a difference between the way that we kind of think about our arts programs and the way we think about our parks programs on that. And so it was to kind of highlight the idea that our parks area needed to kind of be working on those same goals for that. So you are correct that they are very similar from that end. I'm just sharing a little bit why they look a little bit different on the city side is because of that part of it. There might be opportunity there to kind of say, well, how do we expand on this a little bit differently? Yeah.
And Brandon, if it's all right, I'll jump in. We absolutely have some overlap on the district side, specifically in commitment number 1. So I think that we could certainly connect and support each other.
So Brandon, so who is it that will be working together to change the verbiage to fit both entities?
So what I would say is we'll have the working groups when they meet the first
Just the
time.
groups.
I would recommend that the groups actually do that together rather than having someone else do it. Have the working groups actually figure out what the right wording is for each of these items. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question, I guess. So is this where youth sports and youth activities will come into play with the merger of the?
That's an excellent point. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So on the city side, we think about it as parks, right? You guys think about it a little bit differently, but the idea of sports, youth activities, all of that certainly plays a role in this item here.
And Trustee Cooper, on our end, it's in our commitment 1, and it's one of our priorities, and it's engage every student in robust extra and co-curricular experiences that broaden holistic development. So that's a direct connection here.
I don't know about you guys, I'm getting excited about it, just thinking about what the opportunities are. I think as we kind of start to really talk in each other's languages, right, more effectively, I think we'll notice there's a lot of overlap and a lot of opportunity to help each other do a little bit better on that. Mm-hmm. All right, number 5 is aligning on shared regional health goals. The 2 items that went to the top, number 6 and number 5. Cultivate a network of community partners to provide wraparound services for students and families who need them. That was actually a school district goal. And then support parks and recreation program services and facilities for all generations and people with different abilities. We actually have, that item was on both lists and it scored high on both of them for that. They just have a little bit different priority to them, right? Looking at it, first of all, from a health goal for this one. And on number 4, it'd be looking at it from a cultural and diversity type of a goal, as opposed to a health goal, right? I'm not seeing any other comments right now. So the next step then, and this is kind of jumping into on the agenda, the next presentation, but if it's okay, maybe I'll start off with it, and then if there's any clarifying points that Mayor Proctor or President Fleming would like to make, we can jump into that part. Hold on, there we go. So in that survey that we asked, we also asked you to prioritize the top 3 committees that you would like to work on, these working groups on that. We tried to do the very best that we could to keep you within one of those 3 items and to put everyone in a different group. So there are 14 trustees and council members total, 15, or there are 5 working groups. So that means that 4 of them have 3 members on it, and one of the working groups has 2 members on it. So on the community-wide lifelong learning plan, we have Raphael, Banks, and Daniel. On developing a community-informed career pathway, Hughes and Clark. Build intentional civic leader pipelines, Chisholm, Brown Patrick, and just making sure I pronounce it correctly, Goad. Is that right? Thank you, sorry. Fostering a shared regional identity, Bird, Cooper, and McNary. And then shared regional health goals would be Proctor, Marks, and Fleming. Okay. Do we have any thoughts, comments on that part, or President Fleming or Mayor Proctor, if you'd like to say anything about those?
Thank you, City Manager Wright. No, I don't have any additional comments. I would just open the floor if there are any comments from any of the board members or any of the city council members in terms of your actual committee that you were assigned to. Hopefully we were very successful in placing you somewhere where you had a very high level of interest. That was my goal when we decided to add that to our survey, in terms of seeing where your interest lies, so that we could first and foremost conserve time in tonight's meeting, but also place you in somewhere where you would be strong and have a level of passion to follow through on that working group commitment. So if there are any other questions or comments regarding your working group, we'll receive those now. Hearing none. I actually am, Councilmember Nicole Raphael is actually not here tonight. She had another commitment. And she actually sent a few questions here with us, and we actually have passed that portion. It was actually in regards to the developed community informed pathways. And she asked if we could go back to that slide. I'm not sure who's working our slides right now. Brandon, is that you? She is actually very, very passionate about STEM, and she asked us to actually consider, and maybe this is something that we can add into the working group as an objective underneath the ones that were selected. And so one of the goals that the group to consider is to connect with STEAM-oriented business partners, and also requesting job shadowing and or internship opportunities. And then lastly, partner to create watch and learn Saturday opportunities. I'm sure she could elaborate more on those within hers. I'm not sure, is she on that particular committee? Which one is she on? Established, no, she is actually not on that one. She's on established lifelong learning plans. She's on that one. Okay, so I'm assuming that she's asking for us, and if we could, I'm not sure again who's taking the notes and how we can get this back, Brandon. I'll put that in your hands too, since you also have the information she's requesting. But that sounds more like objectives for the working group that the working group can kind of expand on and kind of use as a catalyst maybe for some of these, because these are very pointed ideas. So all very good ideas. And so it seems like that's something more so that drills down into that particular one. So we'll make sure, Councilwoman Raphael, I'm not sure if you're watching or not, but we'll make sure that those get added in so that these ideas can be considered as the working group begins their work around that particular plan. Her next question was actually for the agenda item regarding the tutoring program. So I'll yield the floor back to you, Brandon.
All right, thank you. So if it looks like we have general alignment on that, I do want to thank Mayor Proctor and President Fleming for assisting in getting to this point. We met with them for quite a bit of time, kind of preparing for today, going over how to kind of best prioritize the working groups and the goals for each group. So I just want to recognize the fact that they have put in a lot of time and thought into helping prepare for an effective meeting today. So thanking both of them for that time and their input in having an effective meeting today. So with that, I think we're through this part of the meeting, unless there's any more comments on this part before we move on to the exciting news about a tutoring program. Okay, and I know Dr. Weaver is going to provide, I think, a brief intro as well. I'll just kind of kick it off with talking a little bit about the funding that's available for this. So the city of DeSoto received information that we are receiving the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds. ARPA is what you call it, shorthand, ARPA funding. When we had a conversation with the city council recently about how it is that we would use that funding, one of the priority areas that they wanted for us to focus on was using some of the funding to, the way that the ARPA funding is eligible for is closing the gap of educational achievement that's been caused by COVID. All right, so getting people up to grade level, right, essentially is what the goal was. So when the council established that as a priority, I met soon thereafter with Dr. Weaver, and we started strategizing how it was that we might be able to partner together, right? Here we are talking about partnering together on a more regular basis. This might be a great catalyst project for us to really get this kicked off and moving forward with some steam. So from there, I'll turn it over to Dr. Weaver, who has put together a great program along with his staff, and I just want to thank them for all the hard work that they put into it. It has been just tremendous to watch them think through and develop this program.
Thank you, Brandon, and thank you, City Council members, for your thoughtfulness around this opportunity. We wanted to take the goal of making sure that all of our residents felt like they were seen and heard and are able to be touched by this initiative, while also wanting to prioritize the school system. So I really appreciate you all efforts and thoughtfulness there. I'm actually going to turn it over to Dr. Esther Williams from DeSoto ISD. She's our current project manager for the A2E2 grant. And she stepped up in a big way to help support the vision that we have here for this program. So I'm going to ask Dr. Esther Williams to come up. She has some slides she'll present, and then we'll entertain any questions that you all may have after that.
Button. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to present to you today. The tutoring program that we have developed with the funding that we were given from the city. So let me go ahead and share the screen for you. In front of you, you do have a more detailed outline of the plan, but I'll just go over some of the main points of our program. Okay, here we go. So this proposal was brought to us when we received the funding, and we wanted to make sure that we were aligning our goals for this tutoring program with the goals of the district. So the goal for this tutoring program is to provide the accelerated learning opportunities for our students, as well as address the learning gaps that have happened in the last 18 months. And so we are developing this program for reading and math for our 3rd through 5th grade students who have been identified as maybe needing additional support in addition to the core instruction that they receive during the day, so that we can have some tutoring programs in the afternoon and even on Saturday mornings. We have based it on our numbers off of our Spring Star, and we will also base it on additional numbers that we receive when we take our first MAP test in the next month or so. And with the budget, we also have enough funds for an additional 150 students within the district, within the city of DeSoto, so that they can also benefit from this tutoring program and come to our campuses and receive tutoring services in that way, also in reading and in math. So I'm just providing you some breakdown of the costs that we were able to calculate with some preliminary research with our tutoring companies that are in the area, and some other items that we are making sure that we include in the budget so that we can provide a good and safe program for our students. We are budgeting a total of 21 weeks of tutoring for our students, up to a maximum of 4 hours per week for each student. In their groups, there will be no more than 5 students per group to have optimal one-on-one time with their tutors. And from October 4th will be the first week or first day of this program, and then we will span it to until April 8th so that we can continue to build on what they're learning in school and have them prepared for their STAR test. So we based our budget on a $45 an hour for a group of 5. This is also, again, based on some preliminary research that we did. Most of our tutoring companies were giving us quotes lower than that. We only had one that may have had a $50 an hour for a group of 5. So we based all of the calculations off of that. And for with the money that we are able to use, we can service up to 1,000 students. And we will be putting together an evaluation committee with all of our stakeholders, so you might get a call to be part of our evaluation committee. But we will be evaluating our tutoring companies to make sure that we are choosing the right company for our district, for our students. And we will have a criteria that we will be basing our evaluations on. We've already sent out an RFP for bids for these companies, and their due date will be on September 9th. Okay, so the next few slides are just going to go over more of the details in the budget, but I wanted to highlight the campus coordinators positions because we are going to be asking some of our staff on the campuses to serve as our tutoring coordinators to ensure that students have a familiar face that they know and they're able to call on, and parents know and can ask questions if they need to. But we're looking at 2 campus coordinators per campus. We're going to have a total of 4 campuses in the district, and they will be our main contact for parents, for our tutors, and for our students, and they will help students transition into the tutoring program after school, and they'll also be there on Saturdays to welcome the families and things like that. So we've allocated some costs for snacks, supplies, even custodial budgets, just in case we need to support the extended hours for our custodians. We want to make sure, especially on Saturdays, we will make sure that our spaces are clean and sanitized and safe for our students. And one other thing I wanted to highlight is the busing. We did want to allocate funding for busing and provide our students an opportunity to have transportation going home. We've heard from some feedback before that students couldn't stay after school because of transportation, so we want to make sure that we are eliminating any barriers to being a part of the program. So at the moment, we are budgeting for 2 buses to cover the 4 campuses, with the campuses ending at different times. We're hoping that we'll be able to coordinate the routes and transportation things to be able to accommodate that. But if we need to, there is an additional funds that we could possibly move into that area to accommodate the needs. Okay, so throughout the program, we will be monitoring our students' progress. I've actually met with our data department to make sure to see that if there's a system that we can use to track our students' work and their scores. So we do have Eduphoria, where we can create student groups where we can track the students that are actually enrolled in the program throughout the year, and we can see if there are gains being made, and see just how the data shows their progress throughout the year. You have some dates there that are the I guess the scheduled dates for the MAP tests, and that will be one of our main sources of data for monitoring their progress. And the next few slides, we'll just talk about the timeline. I won't go into all the details, but we are starting now in August to just identify our roster. We'll collaborate with our data and our curriculum departments to make sure that we are addressing the students that we need to address. And then they will get a personal invitation, and we will present the tutoring program to all of them and to our city residents as well, so that they can see the opportunities that they can be involved in. And then in September will probably be the most busiest of the months, as registration will open. We will hire our campus coordinators. We will also identify who our tutoring company or companies will be, and then we'll have a parent meeting to start off the year or the program, so that they know exactly what the expectations are and the process and procedures that they will be following. So for the next few months, we'll have periodical data checks, one in November. We are going to have no sessions for 2 weeks in December, right before the break, just to give our tutors a chance to recoup. And then starting back in January, we will have additional parent meetings and some more data checks. In our parent meetings, we're going to try and use that to also, bring our parents in to hear more information about tutoring, but also use the opportunity to share other information that could help them with any additional items for their child's education, and even some extra things as well, extra opportunities for them. And then at the end of our program, we will be providing everyone with a final report, including budget breakdowns, our student data progress, parent meeting information like what we talked about and the feedback we had from it, our student surveys and parent surveys, and pretty much just everything that you would need to know to see exactly, the benefits of the tutoring program, and maybe we'll get some more funding next year. So. Okay, so that is my presentation. I am here to answer any more questions. If you have any questions on the details that were provided in the packet, or if I can provide clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams, for your presentation, and thank you for the work that you put in to provide us with this information. Now, based on your presentation, the RFP process and registration are going to run concurrently. Is that correct?
Yes. So, well, the RFP will be due September 9th, but we will start to send out the invitations to our students September 1st for them to go ahead and register.
Okay. Now, I know that it was made mention by the city council, and please forgive me if I overlooked anything in your presentation or even here tonight or in the packet in regards to the city council's desire to see this program expanded outside of DeSoto ISD. Is that embedded somewhere within what you all have planned in terms of outreach for students that are outside of DeSoto ISD?
Yes, ma'am. We are allotting, at the moment, 150 spots for students outside of the district, and they'll be given an opportunity to register as well. We'll give them a registration process where we make sure that they reside in DeSoto, and also give us some information about their need for academic support.
And this may be an opportunity for the city to collaborate in terms of marketing efforts to reach those students outside of DeSoto ISD, but are there any specific plans that you all have already identified in order to reach those students, the 150 that you're referring to tell them about this opportunity?
Not at the moment. I don't know if Dr. Weaver has any ideas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not a problem. I just wanted to know if there had already been some identified.
I think our goal is to meet with, and once we settle on the number, I know we mentioned 150. I know there was a moment we were just talking about like 20%, but we'll work with our communications department, both internally and then hopefully also at the city, so that we can do some really intentional targeting of students within our community. Again, we want to go beyond the students that we serve. One, is the right thing to do, and two, we want to prove our worth to prospective families again. So we absolutely want to go after those non-DeSoto ISD students who live in the city of DeSoto.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I have one short question. So once a student is enrolled in the program, are they enrolled through the entirety of the 21 weeks? Or is it a drop in and drop out, or is it?
No, we would like for them to continue on, and even if they surpass, their need for it, if they choose to continue, we will continue to give them additional accelerated type of tutoring opportunities, and even, more challenging things so that they can continue to raise their scores.
And I'm sure that it's in the package, but what is the overall number of students that you've allotted for?
We can service up to 1,000 students.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay, so as we progress through this process, we will, on the city side, be getting updates as well. Is that correct? I'd love to know how we're doing, when we're doing it, and if we can make changes or, whatever. So I'd love to have those updates if possible.
Sure, yeah. This is the first time that the council has seen and heard this initial, draft of the program. We still need to get it finalized in front of the city council, plenty of opportunities for lots of additional input, comments for it, and then also making sure along the way that we are reporting progress to you. one thing that's great about this plan, right, is that it has built-in metrics to it. These are things that the school district and tutoring program is already very good at, which is tracking progress and being able to report on progress. So we will be able to see those in very real time along the way and be able to evaluate how well these ARPA funds really are being utilized.
I'm excited about the partnership. I really am. Thank you.
I have an additional question on behalf of Councilmember Raphael. If no one else has a question, I don't want to take up all the time, but if no one else has a question, I'll just jump right in. Will there be an opportunity for community-based tutoring, such as retired teachers and other local programming? Because I know you all have already identified some of the larger tutoring companies, or some of the more familiar tutoring companies here in the presentation. However, will there be some opportunities for community-based tutoring?
Dr. Reed.
I think that if those individuals are able to respond to the request for qualifications, absolutely. And so right now, if there's an RFQ out there, if there are individuals or organizations that you all know of that we want to be deliberate with, just making sure that they know that the RFQ is available, please help us. I think people have to respond to the RFQ at this point.
And we do, we've noticed that a lot of tutoring companies won't be able to encompass all of our students, so we could send them the RFP so that they can also submit a bid.
And Councilmember Raphael also has a suggestion or an idea in terms of the community-based tutoring. She said that she would like to see a carve out, maybe as you mentioned, and I'm glad that you said that, Dr. Williams, in terms of the fact that no one tutoring company will be able to service 1,000 students at any time. So she's requesting if we can see about maybe embedding or carving out a community-based tutoring program provided through our public library, beyond what's presented here today, in terms of the community-based tutoring. So I'm assuming she's referring to the retired teachers, other local community members that are here that possibly could provide a quality service for our students as well. And so that is her ask for us to consider.
Thank you.
I have a question. What role does the DeSoto ISD trustee board have in this process?
Dr. Reaper.
So if it plays out the way that city manager and I have kind of envisioned, the DeSoto ISD would be essentially the owners of the process, which means that our board of trustees have a requirement to approve the RFQ, the vendors, the expenditures, and then the city we would create an MOU or an agreement, and then they would reimburse us for those services. So essentially, we own the entire process, the application of this vision, and then the city would support us in terms of the funding.
At this time, for the same instance of the council, this is the board's first opportunity to have a conversation around this. So please ask the questions that you need to ask at this time as well. Trustee Gold.
Yes. Please tell Councilman Raphael that I totally agree with her about the community-based tutoring. And my thought is that 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade is definitely a top priority because of testing. But there are 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that need testing also. So if this may be, depending on how funding is and everything, could be expanded at the library with community-based tutoring somehow and include other grade levels. I think that would be very important to look into for the community and for our school system.
And how was that selection made in terms of the grade levels that would be focused on for this particular pilot program, if you will?
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Weaver.
We had a conversation about scale. So do we want to go wide or do we want to go deep? And knowing the goals specifically that our board are monitoring, knowing how important the elementary level is right now and wanting to over-resource so we can see significant growth and progress for students so that we're building a system over time. These third, fourth, and fifth graders will be fourth, fifth, and sixth graders next year. We had a thought of what if we could track the progress of these students year over year to see their growth, to see how they progress, to see how they're accelerated. So, if we had more funding, we absolutely want to serve as many kids as we possibly can. But the thought here was to go to go for depth, not breadth.
Dr. Weaver, is it okay if I ask another question or some? Okay, this is again on behalf of Councilmember Raphael. She was saying as of Wednesday, and this is a very, very specific ask in terms of a piece of data. As of 8/18/2021, what is the current enrollment? And if that number is below the district's estimated student count, then she would like to see the numbers for non-district students increase. So that 150, she's saying if that number, I guess that was used to build out this proposal, if that number is lower than expected, is there an opportunity for us to increase the number of non-district students that we would service through this program?
Yes, ma'am. So on, I think on page 2, so we have current numbers for fourth grade and fifth grade, our current fourth and fifth grade students who took STAR in third and fourth grade. Those are the numbers that we've identified as needing this tutorial program. We don't have any data on our third graders because they didn't take the test last year. But yes, definitely based on the numbers of need that we see on our criteria for selection, we can definitely increase that number for the city. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams, for your presentation. I have a couple of questions as well. So there is a House Bill 4545 that we are to be in compliance with. And so at this point, how are we separating the House Bill 4545 compliance with our fourth and fifth graders to ensure that they do not get burnout? Or are we using these hours inclusive of House Bill 4545?
These hours would absolutely support the requirement that's listed in House Bill 4545. So yes, and this also allows us to utilize our resources in other ways, our local resources. So if these students are getting the required tutoring from this allocation of funds, then that gives us locally more resources to invest in other students who may need us, who may need it. So Trustee Gold, to your point, that's where we may be able to service even more 6th, 7th, and 8th graders or some of the high school students that need the additional support.
How is the 30 hours being tracked?
How is the 30 hours?
Yes.
The tutoring hours?
Yes.
So we will have the sign-in sheets and the documentation that the campus coordinators will be keeping track of whenever our students come to the tutoring program when they sign in, and we'll keep track of that and provide you all the report.
Okay, so when the students come in, because you said data checks, and so to the same question that Councilwoman Marks had, when will we see this data check? Because I'm looking at November, based off you're saying they're taking the map in September, January, and April, and then there's data checks for the November 8th through the 13th. So would that data be based off of the September 7th through the 17th
Yes,
test?
ma'am. That's the plan. So we'll provide you all a report every time we do our data check with our with the assessments, and then we can do it more often as well if that's what you all desire.
And if I can chime in here, I think that the goal would be for us to present data to this body at our quarterly meetings, or the next meetings between the city and the school system. As on the school system side, we monitor data every single month. But how cool would it be for the city and the school system to monitor a collective set of data points? And so the goal is is for us to have a monitoring session with data that we all agree is important and we have an investment in.
When you spoke to, so with the RFP, back to the RFP process, will there be a rubric and will that be given to both bodies of government?
Yes, ma'am. So when I spoke with the purchasing department, our director of purchasing is creating a rubric for us, and we will supply that to all of you as well as the evaluation committee prior to the evaluation time.
So the board would get that, and so therefore it would come to the board in September to vote on?
Yeah, we can do that, September.
Oh, no, I was just only asking. We have
Yeah, I'm not,
only.
we'll have to double check to see if it'll actually need to be voted on, but we absolutely can provide it to both bodies.
Okay, thank you. So how do you align tracked hours with the district?
How do we, I'm sorry?
So how are you aligning the tracked hours with the district hours? Because we're still, Dr. Weaver just stated that we're doing House Bill 4545 and these hours are being over. So I'm trying to figure out how is this one and the same? So how does this overlap with our ESSER plan? Because we still have to be in compliance with our ESSER plan. And now we have House Bill 4545 as well as being able to show the city for their donation that we're using this for this.
Yes, ma'am. So we've actually, I have scheduled a meeting with our curriculum department to make sure that we aren't overlapping with the ESSER funded tutoring options that they're going to be providing as well. And I also actually met with our special ed director as well to make sure that those hours for their students receiving additional support would be tracked, and they're going to be collaborating with us to make sure that whatever system they use, we are also able to track that for their students.
Okay, so can that be provided to us before you start this plan or execute this plan?
Okay, yes.
What are any other questions? Trustee McNair.
Yes, my question is, I know for our students, for students in DeSoto ISD, we'll have campus-based assessments and things to support what their needs are. The approximately 150 students that may be homeschooled, private school, where are we getting that data from to know where they are?
So we are going to be including that with our registration process. We are going to be requesting their campus or their school data, whatever it might be. Most of them do use the MAP testing or MAP assessments, but if they have a different kind of campus assessment, we'll have copies of that so we can evaluate that for the purpose of this tutoring program.
And I'm sorry, last but not least, because I have to include our parents. So, and again, I don't know, I saw it was somewhat spoke on, but how does the campus and parents know how many hours are going to be obtained? Because I don't want people to think this is an island program. Like, this is all inclusive with everything and being compliant with what we need to do for our students and closing those gaps.
So how will they, so when they sign up for the program, we will have a schedule already for them as far as how many hours per week they will be receiving. The idea is maybe for fifth grade, they will receive a total of 4 hours a week. So it could be based on the need or the interest, they can have their hours split between 2 days, all on Saturday, where it'd be 4 hours straight of tutoring on a Saturday program. So there's still a lot of, I guess, opportunity to refine that plan, but they will be given they'll be given a concrete number of hours per week when they will be able to attend the tutoring, or when tutoring will be serviced.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? I do want to take the time to thank the city for this partnership. I mean, it means so much more to our students, right? It's not about us, but for what our students will benefit from this. And as you can see, there's a lot of questions on both sides. And so that we need to make sure that we're in compliance. And I don't want our students doing so many more things that does not correspond to the outcomes. And so, and I don't want to confuse parents and what is expected, because there's so many more requirements now through the state of Texas that a parent can opt out, opt in, and they need to know that they're not confusing their opportunities that they have to advance for their students. So, and Dr. Williams, you do know that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Moving on with our agenda, we are now at agenda item 4, public comments for non-agenda items. We have none of those. And at this time, I do want to, again, encourage any questions that you have, please send as it relates to what we talked about tonight on both sides so that we can still hash through this. But with all hearts and minds clear, we do thank you for joining us in our house tonight. We look forward to seeing you in, Mayor Proctor, 4 months? 4 months. So the time is now 7:50 and this joint meeting is now adjourned.